Hi, this is Pete the Tech Guy, and this is the latest of our subscriber commentaries. This one's going to be our second free one for everybody, but after this week, the commentaries are going to be, we're going to have an introduction that everybody can see, and then the commentary that follows, which only subscribers get to see. So if you want to get to see this commentary, every time we do it, it's going to be probably weekly, possibly bi-weekly, or every once in a while. If there's something I have to rant about, I might rant about it early. Go to the website, hit the tip jar, any amount, and you'll get that week's commentary. Subscribe at any amount, and you'll get them every week. So I want to talk a little bit about entitlements. And not entitlements in the sense that if you have entitled about budget busting like in Chicago with our good friend John Rubery has been writing about, but I want to talk about entitlements in terms of feeling entitled. Feeling that you have something, that this is something that I should have. I have to have this. I am special. I deserve this. And one of the real facts of life is, and if you read Proverbs or if you read the book of Job, for example, one of the oldest books in the Bible and so forth, it mentions how Job really handles the whole entitled business well, in the sense that when he loses everything, he says, "Naked I came into this world, naked I will leave it. The Lord giveth, the Lord will take it away. Hey, blessed be the name of the Lord." And in that sense, Job is exactly right. When you are born, you have nothing. Everything you get, everything you have, someone gives you. Your parents, your family, whatever. You got nothing. By nature itself, humans are entitled to nothing. Nothing at all. But there are people who believe, because they've come into a situation where they've had respect or they have power or they have money, that they are entitled. And there's two great examples of that I want to talk about. The first is coming up this week, this Thursday. The Boston Globe is very, very sad. And not because the Red Sox are doing well, they like that because that sells papers. Not because the Patriot season is starting because they like that because that sells papers. They're very, very sad that Donald Trump is succeeding. And they're even more sad that the whole meme of fake news has started to take off. Now, if you're a regular reader of my site, and if you're a subscriber, you probably are, you know that Donald Trump talking about fake news is basically just repeating things that we've reported for a long time. We've reported for a long, long time how the media, through sins of omission, through sins of commission, don't bother to report on things. Great example was this week's events in Charlottesville. You had a question, you had no white supremacists showed up. They were all going to the Washington thing the next day or the day after. But a lot of Antifa people came, and they started going after the police and comparing them to Klan members. Now, and they even assaulted a reporter, they assaulted and injured a police officer, yet the media either called them nonviolent or ignored it, even though they were objectively not nonviolent. And the fact that these people are assaulting police officers, I mean, that's newsworthy. But the media, being the media, decided that this does not fit their narrative, or as I put it, the tech guy's laws of media outrage, which state that that the amount of outrage the media will have over actions will depend on whether or not that group is their ally. Depending on how close they are allied with the media, their outrage will be either great or small. I mean, it's all, the closer they are, whatever group is, to the media in terms of what they believe and so forth, the more likely that the media will ignore anything bad that they do. Now, the media has been doing this for a while. Another great example, Pam Geller had a recording of another imam talking about, death to the Jews and so forth. And if that had been a Christian pastor critiquing homosexuality or critiquing transgenderism, There would have been no other story in the news, and every single conservative and every single Christian would be made by the media to comment on it, and they would demand, the media would demand that clergy member be condemned. But because it was an Islamist, because it was an imam, no such reaction. And because the Democrats are becoming more dependent on Islam for votes, and in fact, I've talked about this. I had some posts up a while back, the ghastly Tom Hagen math. In fact, I've argued, if you were listening to the podcast previous, that one of the reasons why it was so important for the left to not blame the shooter for what happened at Pulse, the Pulse nightclub, where all these gay people were slaughtered, is they cannot call out Islam because they have decided that Islam is the future of the Democratic Party, and they are correct to some degree. The gays and the transgenders are going to remain a tiny percentage of the population, and they're not going to grow. I mean, because this is an inclination, and it only hits a certain part of the population. Some people may experiment, but it's not going to grow. And plus, if you marry someone of the same sex and so forth, you're unlikely to have children. The Jewish community, for reasons that only they can answer, other than the Orthodox Jews, again, have not been fruitful and multiplying, so to speak, especially liberal Jews. So the Democrats need votes for someone, which is one of the reasons why they're into illegal immigration. But Islam and Muslims, they're having a lot of children. So the math basically tells the Democrats that in 15, 20 years, they're going to be really dependent on those votes, and they've decided to go after them, which is why you see them embracing more and more anti-Semitic candidates, because they're going to basically do what Labour did in England. They're going to go after the Muslim vote, and if it means gays go under the bus, if it means transgenders go under the bus, if it means Jews go under the bus, that's fine. They've already thrown Christians under the bus. So this is what's going to happen. So the media doesn't report on these things. So the Boston Globe decided, we're going to have a united day where we're all going to criticize Donald Trump together for attacking press. So that's freedom of the press. He's attacking the independent press. No, he isn't, as a matter of fact. The fact that he's critiquing the independent press, he's calling out the independent press, but has he done anything to stop the press from reporting? Has he restricted the press's freedom? I mean, the funny thing about the media is they keep saying, oh, Donald Trump and the left, Donald Trump is a Nazi. If Donald Trump was a Nazi, you wouldn't be saying it because you would be afraid for your life to say it. If Donald Trump was a Nazi and a fascist and was using the government in a Nazi and a fascist thing, you'd be silent because you'd be afraid that you'd be dead. Only a person ignorant says something like that. So anyways, the press is deciding they're going to do this thing. They've got 100 newspapers signed up with the Globe. And I'm trying to figure out how that's going to look any different from every other day that they attack Donald Trump. Since they attack Donald Trump every day, I can't see how it's going to be any different. So because of this, I've decided that August 16th for me is going to be point at the media and laugh. Yeah, just like that. And you can see that missing tooth now. Technically, the tooth isn't missing. The implant's downstairs, so I could actually show you it, but it fell out, and it's too expensive for me to fix, and I'm just not going to spend $4,000 on that. Just not going to do it. I don't have $4,000 to throw away on a tooth. That's one of the advantages of being 30 years married. I don't have to chase another woman. But I digress. So the media, I think August 16th, you should point at a member of the mainstream media and laugh at them. And when someone says, that's cruel, no, they're exercising their right to free press. They want to do this thing. You go ahead. You do that. And I'm going to exercise my right of freedom to laugh at you and point at you and say, ha ha, as they would do in The Simpsons. Now, the other bit of entitlement is coming from the NFL. It's football season again, which means it's another time where football players get to run that unique thing where they can do protests while on the clock at work which is something no other employee can do unless you're a professional protester, in other words, a leftist, who pays a lot of their protesters, as our reporting has talked about in the past, which the left doesn't report on. So you have people making six figures who are protesting on the job, who are directly annoying the customers who pay the ticket to see them. Now, granted, the NFL is very big, and when you're number one in terms of ratings, if you lose 10% 2 years in a row, you're still getting a good amount of people. And it's going to take a little while before the NFL people are going to finally say the hell with this. But the problem that the NFL has done by not nipping this in the bud, because the players feel entitled, even though nobody has a guaranteed right. You don't have a divine right to a spot on an NFL roster. First of all, any NFL player should know this, because you have to fight like hell to get these roster spots. If you are playing in a preseason game, especially if you're playing as one of the twos or one of the threes, and by the twos and threes, I'm talking about second or third team, because a lot of the starters don't play in very many quarters of a preseason game. You are playing very hard and you're trying to impress against the other guys' twos and threes, because you are fighting for a roster spot, and you are fighting for that chance to make that six-figure salary, instead of making the small money that you might make on a practice squad if you're lucky to make one, or the really small money that you might make on arena football or Canadian football or whatever. So you should know that you are not entitled. That the NFL is not, it's not something that you have coming to you. And more importantly, you also know that there are 20 guys, at least, who want your job, who would kill for your job. And yet you're upsetting the customer base. And I think the funny thing about this entitlement is that the NFL players are going to be asking their agents, hey, how come you're not getting me a local sponsorship? How come I'm not getting any of these deals we used to get? Well, it's because you've decided to make the NFL political. And you might get some endorsement deals on a product that appeals strictly to those who hate America, strictly to those who hate the flag, in other words, the Democrats. But you're not going to get the endorsement deals with the general public if you're a kneeler. And if you're a marginal player who's a kneeler, forget it. You're going to get cut. Now, you probably would have gotten cut anyways. It's sort of like the Michael Sam thing. Michael Sam got drafted not because he was a decent player, but because he was gay. And the NFL pressured people to draft him. The only problem is he couldn't make a team because he wasn't good enough. And then he buckled under the pressure because he basically played the gay card to say, if you don't draft me, it's because you discriminate. No, you don't want. If you made the plays, you would have stayed on the roster. He didn't. Now, again, NFL players, if you are an NFL player and you don't mind not getting those endorsement contracts, and you don't mind not getting the money, and you don't mind, like this Eric Young, if he says, I don't care if I don't play, I want to make this statement. Well, that's a little more honorable in the sense that you're willing to take the consequences of your actions. But the consequences of your actions aren't just for you, it's for the rest of the people on your team. Because it hits the entire NFL. But at least I'll give some people credit where credit is due. If they want to do this, even though I think they're dead wrong, and I think that they're full of shit, because none of these players were taking knees for people being shot in Chicago, because Chicago is run by Democrats, and the people shooting them are black gang members and Latino gang members. And because the shooters are the wrong color, they don't get reported on. Nothing gets done. And that's another sense of entitlement. The entitlement, if you are a Democrat running a big city, you do not get called out for things like this. If you are a Democrat in Chicago, you're not going to get called out for it. Because the gangs are too valuable to help re-elect Democrats. And to admit that that problem is something that you're not touching, that's a dangerous thing. Now, if you want to see people who actually achieve things without entitlements, go to my YouTube channel and check out the playlist for the Catholic Marketing Network There were 53 videos there or something like that. I'd look it up right now, but I've been trying to log on while saying all this, and it just doesn't work. Now, I talk to authors, I talk to priests, I talk to activists, but I talk to a lot of people who had great conversion stories, a lot of people who God touched, a lot of people who overcame incredible things. And they didn't see entitlement. They saw suffering, either their own or others, and overcame it through their religion, through Catholicism, through their love of Christ, through the Blessed Mother, and so forth. And what a difference. And it's such a contrast to talk to those people and to watch the media and the left function. But check out those videos. You'll really find some interesting stuff there. And of course, like them if you like them, because we're trying to get the more hits we get, the better it is. And unlike some of the reports, we don't buy YouTube views. We don't buy any of those things. We don't buy Twitter things. We get whatever we get. So when you think of entitlements, talk about, and people talk to you about people entitled to white privilege. Talk about the privilege of the media that has the privilege to hit the president, who has the privilege to ignore stories they don't like. Talk about the privilege of the NFL players who have the privilege to make big money playing a game they love while attacking their customer base. And then watch the videos of those people at the Catholic Marketing Network and contrast the thought of privilege. Or check out my interviews with immigrants and notice how they work rather than seek a privilege. Show that to people who try and say this to you, and you will understand, and maybe they will understand too. Well, that's this week's commentary. I hope you like it. Please share it with your friends. Maybe share it with your enemies. Maybe they'll become friends. And I would encourage any of you who are not subscribers who are watching this, because we're going to let this out for everybody, please consider subscribing. Not only because we're way down in terms of tip jar versus last year. I mean, it's not a very good number. But more importantly, we provide you with good writers that we pay on a monthly basis for their work. We provide you with first-hand reporting. We provide you with commentary like we have this here. And we provide you with new material every month, and we've been doing it now for 10 years. If you don't like what the mainstream media does, if you want an alternative, it's got to be supported by someone, and we ask you to support it. Because sooner or later, the media is going to come after us and so forth. I mean, that's why I didn't move to a new server. I just couldn't afford it because the money hasn't come in this year. But that's just the way it is, and that's the way it goes. But if you want to help us out, hit the tip jar any amount. It will be greatly, greatly appreciated.